Yeah, this is my first ever racing weekend. I've never done anything like this before. I decided to join the Radical SR1 Cup as opposed to some of its competitors because it's the fastest form of racing you can get at this level. As a complete novice, this is the quickest we can go. And it's the biggest learning curve. The car teaches you so much about car handling. It's so beneficial. This is why I chose it.
Before today, I'd only done 3 track days, and this is my first real race. The thing I really like about the SR1 is it's a proper racing car. It's quick, and it's a good value for money race series. And Radical provide all the supports that a novice like me needs, because otherwise coming into motorsport can be a very daunting thing for a novice.
The man that sits on pole position, Jerome Desadlier, was on pole position for the race earlier on today, but as the lights went out, Jerome went nowhere, and as a result of being on pole position, then found himself having to do lots and lots of work to work his way back up through the order. Row 3 of the grid is number 10, David Thompson, and 51, Andrew Ritchie, and row 4 is 48, Andy Chittenden, and alongside him is number 22, James Pinkerton. Row 5 is number 5, Peter Devlin, and 95, which is David Tagg, and on the 6th row on his own, car number 71. Another 20-minute race, 5-second board goes up. Jerome Desadlier sitting on pole position, Rob Ellis alongside. Red lights are on, revs begin to rise, and as the lights go out, which they do now, very slowly away is car number 56, was it, which is Rob Courtnidge, who's going nowhere. Car number 95 is also stalled on the grid as well, which is David Tagg, but it is going to be, by the look of things, Rob Ellis that takes up the lead of the race, and in second position, that looks as though it's Jerome Desadlier that's there in second place. The cars that struggled off the line have now got themselves going, but Jerome Desadlier might drop down to third place here if he's not careful. No, not quite. So down into the braking area for what is Graham Hill Bend. Let's just have a quick look. Is that Richard Baxter that leads? It is. It's Richard Baxter that leads. Jerome Desadlier there in second place, and now I can see the black flashes to Rob Ellis's car. He is there in third place. When they're all facing away from you, they're all white. It's not particularly easy, is it, Chris?
It's not, absolutely. And where Rob Courtnidge had the stall on the line, which is a real shame because he was one of the ones that was getting into the mix, certainly lap time wise, and closing in on a few of the sharp end drivers. But he also bolted and held up the number 48 Andy Chittenden from behind him, who of course went launching off of it absolutely fine, and then had to throw the anchors out the back to stop himself from going into the back of Rob Courtnidge. So it's compromised his race as well.
So we'll see those two cars, I'm sure, pick their way further up through the order, but it's just going to take them a while longer to do it. And as we say, before the red flags came out in race number 1, we'd very much got the top 6 all together. So with Richard Baxter leading the pack at this stage, the pack just about to turn his way through the left-hander at Stirling's corner. What is he able to do in this one? Because Richard Baxter in the race earlier on today was able to post what was second position. Well, at the moment he's out front and leading the race, but for how much longer by the look of things? Here they come over the start finish line. Richard Baxter leads the race. Jerome Desadlier there in second position. Third place is Rob Ellis, the race winner from earlier on today, and fourth place just going through. It is going to be David Thompson in fourth place, James Pinkerton in fifth place, and as you suggested, the delayed Andy Chittenden, car number 48, completes the top 6.
So he's so frustrated after being on the third step of the podium for the opening race. He's got it all to do. Now we do know that means he can, but you've got to assume the best that he can be aiming for is the bottom step of the podium. But now he's got Jerome Desadlier up there, is that he's going to be really hard pushed to get it up even onto the podium, to be honest with you. So it's all mixed up. But Richard Baxter from the second row in that 88, that was a cracking start that he got.
Yeah, fantastic start. Of course, he's had a season and a bit of racing these cars already. He's now graduated largely up to what is the Radical Challenge Championship, for which he's competing in a Radical SR3, and as I said earlier on, he is one of 2 or 3 drivers amongst this pack that has previous experience of racing on the Branch Hatch Grand Prix circuit prior to this weekend, and he's converted what was a 4th place start to the early race lead in this one, and has a 0.6 second advantage between himself and Jerome Desadlier behind. Or that's what he did have. That has been eroded by the Swiss driver over the course of this lap, because it's very much now nose to tail for the lead of the race as they went round through Stirling's that time through, and you'll see as they come up towards Clearways corner, yeah, nothing to choose between the pair of them. Onto the brakes, Jerome Desadlier closes up under braking onto the coattails of Richard Baxter, and as they now thread their way through Clark Curve and over the start-finish line, the fight is on for the lead of the race. If these two delay each other, don't rule out the fact that Rob Ellis, who is, a couple of seconds adrift, could begin to catch up as well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, as the great Murray Walker always said, it's one thing to catch, it's another to pass. And we saw that with De Sadlier when he, sort of off of his poor start in that first race, he managed to catch up with that sort of gaggle of 5 cars, but he wasn't able to really start picking them off. Okay, the red flag came out before he had a good few more laps of trying it, but it isn't that easy to do. So he's there in second at the moment. He's being held up by the leader, Baxter, number 88. But, as you say, is it going to start bringing the rest of the pack into the mix?
Yeah, great fight for 4th and 5th going on. David Thompson, number 10, under huge pressure from James Pinkerton, who's looking to try and pick his pocket. If those two hold each other up, Andy Chittenden and the number 51 car of Andrew Ritchie are all within touching distance as well. So keep an eye towards that 4th, 5th, and then almost 6th and 7th place squabble. Jerome De Sadlier closing the gap on Richard Baxter on the first flying lap, posted the fastest lap of the race we've seen so far. 1 minute 37.234. 1 minute 37.234. They were down in the 1 minute 35s earlier on. It was actually Jerome De Sadlier in race 1 that posted the fastest lap of the race as well. And well, he's charging to try and get himself right onto terms with Richard Baxter, who's having none of it at this stage, because the two of them still very much together turn their way what is the 3rd time through Stirlings and back into our sighted clearways in a few moments' time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality, isn't it? We know that Jerome De Sadlier is able to lap about 1.1 seconds quicker than everybody else, I think, is where we saw it sort of pitched at. So we know he's got it there to be considerably faster, and absolutely he's done it. He's into the lead and he's now pulling away.
Yep, so Sadlier goes to the top of the times. Squabble though for 3rd and 4th still very much together. Number 12, the white car but with the black flashes up the centre of it, Rob Ellis, being hounded by car number 22 James Pinkerton, who at one stage over the course of this weekend we didn't think was going to be competing. So it's great to see James out there and potentially on for a podium spot.
And even when we knew he was competing, we had no idea what number.
You know, we didn't.
But yeah, he's up there. What is he in 4th position? And he's actually pressurising to try and pass Ellis, isn't he? Of course, the race 1 winner.
Yeah, so Rob Ellis is going to have to stick his elbows out a little bit if he wants to try and hang on to it. Jerome De Sadlier all of the time, though, is starting to build the advantage in the lead of the race. Let's just guide you down through the order at the moment. Number 3, Jerome De Sadlier leads the race by 1.6 seconds from 88 Richard Baxter, who's got almost 6 seconds in hands now between himself and number 12 Rob Ellis in 3rd place, who's being kept very busy by the 4th place guard, number 22 James Pinkerton. In 5th place is number 51 Andrew Ritchie. 6th place is number 56, which is Rob Courtnidge. 7th place is number 95 David Tagg, having a good run this time through. 8th place is number 5, which is Peter Devlin. 9th place is number 71 Nigel Payne, and he is the last of the runners at the moment because of course we lost those 2 cars, both with rear damage, to the pit lane.
So 9 of them still running. De Sadlier starting to canter off into the distance. It was 1.624 the last time he came through. It doesn't, if it's probably gone out, but not masses. He's not stamping his authority quite that we saw earlier, and he's just still lapping in the 137s compared to, what did we say we got in 135, didn't we? Yeah, 135.8. So he's clearly still driving well within himself, although when we interviewed one of the drivers earlier, they said it's a little bit slower out there this afternoon on the circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. That was Mike Newbold, wasn't it?
Yes.
Or was it Tony Wells? No, Tony Wells was suggesting it was a little bit slower, was he, than earlier on? So it may well be that. I mean, it's quite warm out there, so maybe the if not the ambient temperature, then certainly the track temperature just means that maybe it's just gone beyond the ideal sweet spot for everybody. As down towards the bottom of the Cooper Straight goes that fantastic fight that is occurring for what is 3rd and 4th place, isn't it? That Rob Ellis still managing to hang on to the position at this stage. Car number 22 James Pinkerton, though, is just not going away, is he? He's actually the quicker of the 2 cars, I suspect, if he could get past Rob Ellis.
Yeah, and he's got to find it. We've seen quite a few of them look as if they're in challenging positions, but not necessarily throwing one up the inside. They're almost kind of braking as late as they can, and I get the impression it's almost the case they're trying to take as much momentum onto certainly the big straight out the back down towards Hawthorns, but not quite able to do it at the moment. So he sat there as he went across the line. 0.380 was the gap, and harassing, I think, is probably the appropriate way of saying it, as our leader comes down towards us for what will be the 6th time, and this will be half race distance, 10 minutes 12 seconds remaining. Through goes the number 3 car of Jerome de Sadler. That gap now back to Baxter is 2.672. Still only 0.4 that he grew that by.
Yep, so still going the right way, though, as far as he's concerned. As for the fight for third and fourth, that has just opened out by another tenth of a second. So Rob Ellis still under pressure from James Pinkerton, but James isn't quite close enough this time to have a nibble either at Paddock Hill Bend or on the run through Druids Corner. We've also got the cars in 5th and 6th place very much together. Number 51 is Andrew Ritchie sitting there in 5th place. He's got Rob Courtnich's number 56 car sitting fair and square in his mirrors, and Courtnich might have a quick nibble here. Up the inside he goes at Graham Hill Bend, brakes very, very late, gets the car just about turned into the corner. It tries to wash out wide on the exit, but he gathers it back up, and now it looks as though trying to return the favour was going to be the car of Andrew Ritchie, but he couldn't quite squeeze his way through. So shuffle in the order. Rob Courtnich is up to 5th position. Andrew Ritchie, number 51, drops down to 6th.
That was a bit more than a nibble in the end, wasn't it? That was that was a proper dare move, throwing it up the inside. Of course, Courtnich, he's the one that stalled on the start, wasn't he? So he's recovering back through the field, and is a man on a mission. And he was certainly lapping quicker than Ritchie, but he's also lapping quicker than Pinkerton and Ellis. But is that just a bit too much of a gap? We're talking about 4.5 seconds he'd have to make up there. I think he's got the bit between his teeth. He's going to be trying, and he's got not far short of half the race to do it.
Yeah, he's got plenty of time still just to see whether he might be able to improve in terms of position. So we've got 9 cars still out there and running, following the retirement of car number 10, David Thompson, and number 48, Andy Chittenden, as Jerome de Sadler goes through and really starts to pile on the pressure and ask a few questions of those behind, building the lead advantage to now almost 4 seconds, largely because he's just posted the fastest lap of the race we've seen so far, 1 minute 36.690. He's the only driver down into the 1 minute 36 second bracket, and that lap time is actually almost a second quicker than anybody else has managed in the race so far.
Yeah, well, not surprised. It's about a second, 1.1 that we saw he was quicker. But Courtnich, not only has he got past Ritchie, and even whilst making that pass on Ritchie, he's still lapping 1.2 seconds quicker than the 2 cars in front of him, Ellis and Pinkerton, the number 12 and number 22 cars. The gap is now down to 3.9 seconds. So I think he is. If he can keep reeling them in at this rate, he's going to be on the back of them before we get to the end of this race.
Yeah, certainly I suspect that will be the case. Let's just keep an eye on that one. As you say, it's 3.89 seconds, so let's call it 3.9 and see how much that gap diminishes by as Rob Courtnich looks to try and close up on James Pinkerton and Rob Ellis respectively. So our race leader is about to come through shortly and conclude what will be lap number 8. He's just about to turn his way through Stirling's any second now, so through the left-hander at Stirling's and then down the straight towards the braking area for Clearways, where he will reappear back into sight. There'll be traffic before too much longer to deal with, the first of which will be car number 71, Nigel Payne. He will have to work his way through. And let's have a look. There goes now car number 71, the light green and black car of Nigel Payne, that retired from race number 1 with steam coming from the car. It was that was the car that brought about, I think, a safety car period, wasn't it? And now he's going to receive the blue flags, I would guess, on the run up towards Druids, because the race leader is very much bearing down on him. Jerome de Sadler, though, having built the advantage, can afford to take his time, can't he, to pick his way through the traffic.
It looks almost as if Ellis and Pinkerton knew that Courtnich were coming, because they've both just put in personal best times there. Safety car is out. Okay.
Let's have a quick run down through the order. Car number 3, Jerome de Sadler, leads under safety car conditions here at Brands Hatch from number 88, Richard Baxter in 2nd place. The race 1 winner, Rob Ellis, number 12 there in 3rd position. 4th place is 22, James Pinkerton. 5th place is number 56, Rob Courtnich. 6th place is number 95, David Tagg. 7th place is going to be the number 5 car just over the start finish line now, which is going to be Peter Devlin. And 8th will be the last of the runners, which will be car number 71, Nigel Payne, who's there in 8th position.
It looks like they're not sure down there either. They've got a green flag and a checkered flag ready, so they're basically hedging their bets to see where we're going to get to time-wise, and they're going to have to play this totally by ear, aren't they, once it comes back round, to see when they come across the line. It only needs a second left on the clock and they'll let them go green, but they are getting the checkered flag ready just in case.
So, checkered flag being readied, green flag being
Payne's
ready.
been waved through as well.
And here is the safety car, which
they are going to do it.
will peel its way into the pit lane this time through with 30 seconds remaining on the clock. Yeah, we're going to get one more racing lap in, aren't we? As over the start-finish line they'll come. There's back markers possibly to deal with on this lap. There's no overtaking until they go over the start-finish line. Richard Baxter looks to try and get on with it straight away, but Rob Ellis is not that far away. They've got the light green car of Nigel Payne just up the road that could play inadvertently a pivotal part in the outcome of this race as they head in towards the braking area for Druids Corner. Richard Baxter trying round the outside of Jerome Desadlier, now needs to close the door on Richard Baxter, which he just gets done in time. Nigel Payne blends out of the throttle and allows the top 5 all to squeeze their way through. Sensible driving by Nigel Payne, so they can now roll their sleeves up, Chris Dawes, and slug it out on the final lap.
That was absolutely brilliant by the car of Payne there to stay completely out of the way. He could see this fight going on. You basically have a fight between 3, a fight between 2. So it's Pinkerton and Courtnage. Now we knew that Courtnage, if that gap had been eroded, he was going to be desperately trying to get into in contact with Pinkerton. Unfortunately for him, it was Pinkerton and Ellis that he was chasing, but Ellis has disappeared off with Desadlier and Baxter. Pinkerton is then a little bit further back, so Courtnage is the best he can really try to do now is get up one more position.
So they're just threading their way through Hawthorne already, starting to work their way through Westfield. Then from there, of course, they start to head downhill before they climb uphill towards Dingledale and Sheen Curve, which is where they are at the moment. So here comes our race leader, Jerome Desadlier, looking as though he has managed to reassert himself back into the lead and has built, what, half a dozen car length advantage between himself and Richard Baxter, largely because through the middle part of the lap, Jerome Desadlier has gone quicker through that second sector of the lap than anybody has done so far in the race. Checkered flag is being readied. The Sunoco checkered flag is about to fly, and it is going to be a win for the Swiss driver. Jerome Desadlier comes through and claims top honours in race number 2 for the Radical SR1 Cup. Richard Baxter in second place, and race 1 winner Rob Ellis in third place. James Pinkerton in fourth place. Rob Courtnage comes through and finishes in fifth position at the wheel of car number 56. Sixth place should be car number 95. Before him, though, of course, we'll get the lapped car coming through, number 71, in the hands of Nigel Payne, who will be classified in 8th.
Thank you.
Well done, Jerome.
I'll wait, you're all right. I thought I could breathe a little bit, manage my tires, but I saw the guys coming on real hot. I knew that with the restart I couldn't mess it up because these two gentlemen are a little bit quicker than me in sector 1, I felt. So I was just trying to block, and in the back, I could get some speed in the fast corners. So yeah, it was a great race. I'm very excited.
Absolutely delighted. I mean, that was such a cool race. Jerome's being really humble. I mean, I think his fastest lap was almost a second quicker than mine. And, I'm just delighted to have been able to stick on the back of him. So it was mega. I love being in P2. I mean, that'll do for now. I'm still chasing a win. Maybe next time.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as good a start as the first race. Richard had a blinder, went straight past me around the outside, which was quite upsetting. But yeah, these guys are super quick, and yeah, it was great fun. It was a bit of a battle, and yeah, but that's all part of the fun, right?